Hello and welcome back to Fellowship of the Swords. Today's episode is going to explore the myths and facts of temperature fluctuations in a haunted area. So, hello, without further ado, I'm Farah Rose Deel, and along with my husband,
Kenneth Deel. Today we're going to talk about a topic that's a little bit controversial because the old school thought is that cold spots, we'll start with cold, is the ghost sucking energy, heat out of the room as though it's feeding on it. And, I think you as I know, if we had never heard that before, it wouldn't be our first guess based on experience alone. And even the theology doesn't fit. That, again, probably is an old science note, but I think it's more the crusty old parapsychology investigators come up with that stuff. And it's way outdated, in my opinion. It should be just disregarded. Yeah, anyway, the cold spots is actually, as we outline in our book, the first one, the Catholic Demonologist Handbook, what really is going on there is that the spirit is in the room and its essence is cold. It doesn't project the cold, it is cold itself. It's like putting ice cubes in a warm cup. Eventually the cup will turn cold just like the ice cubes itself. Not just because they're melting either, because if you stick a baggie in there with the ice cubes in it, the water will still turn cold. The idea of them sucking the energy out of the room has no proof, and there's even some videos that were good where they caught something like a head and shoulder silhouette, like when you see the black shadow people, whatever they call them, that they saw the thermal imaging cameras outlining a much colder entity that was clearly defined, but only head and shoulders, no essence that was absorbing the whole room. It didn't show that it was leaving traces, like it was over here, it sucked out the cold area, now there's a big blur of blackness there from representing the cold on the FLIR camera. And that's something to note there too. So there's even a bit of scientific proof that old theory is wrong. Anything you'd like to add to this about the cold from personal experiences?
I think that a lot of people equate temperature with fallen angels. Bad spirits, good spirits. I think there is only merit when it applies to a negative type situation, a negative type haunt. The problem being here is that to judge a nice warm areas as being any type of spirit is probably an only illusionary moment that you step into. And cold is much more often experienced, as in, when you step out into the cold of your warm house, think about it. You feel like the air is sucked out of you. So that's a physical, natural, organic reaction. That's why it's easy to assume that any type of spirit has sucked the life out of you, when actually it hasn't. It's actually a projection. More than likely, it's a temporary projection, but it also, in my experience, denotes a much stronger demonic spirit.
Yes, when it's notable, and not the Al Gore 3-degree panic. That.
Oh, come on! My goldfish have a 3-degree panic. They die at 5 degrees.
Oh, that's pretty much yeah. But when they get significant changes, you'll know that it is supernatural. If it's 20 degrees difference in one room, and say it's not wintertime, and it doesn't have some creak in the wall or a vent is actually open to the outside, which we hope they look for, common sense ailments and that kind of thing. But it does. It seems like the more evil and stronger the entity, the colder it is, the blacker it is, too.
Precisely.
In essence. So that means that we might experience. We could see blackness. We can feel the cold. Ooh. Oh, and remember these cases? You probably have one to share, too, where, say, some investigators are on a case, and then they get slimed. That's one of the funny nicknames they're referring to the Ghostbusters our movie, is when it almost feels like a spirit had walked right through you, disregarding your presence, and then since it's frigid, it actually kind of chilled up your whole body, which is one of the things also to happen, unfortunately, when people get oppressed heavily. The thing is so closely attached to them, oppression and possession, they might be chilly, where no one else in the house. And one of the case study examples is the Amityville case, for example. The George Lutz kept putting wood on the fire. He was freezing. That's because he seems like he was the one that was really affected in the house more than anybody. He became darker. He let his beard grow out, his hair. He stopped taking baths. He became short-tempered.
And I think it's here we're going to introduce a new theory that we're going to talk about in our next book. And I say theory because I'm still looking for evidence among the saints and other writings to support this.
Go way back.
What Kenny's talking about here is that we allude to physical sensation and experiences of people in terms of describing being slimed. It goes so much deeper than that. Our physical organic body is usually attacked in the heart by the demonic. Now, let's just take George Lutz's case, for example. If his blood pressure was slowed and his heart was being squeezed by a demonic, he would not have had any blood pressure to feel his extremities. He would be constantly cold.
Yeah,
That's something that we're going to be discussing in one of our next books, because a lot of people, they don't believe, they think that everything is external from us. When we have invited the demonic in by legal right, it becomes an eternal mechanism that can literally choke the life out of our organs slowly as it wants to, causing us to have thoughts of suicide, causing us just to thoughts of, my gosh, there's something wrong with my body. And it creates such a negative space and a negative dissonance and environment in all your relationships that you literally end up breaking off and running people off and away from you. And that is, in my opinion, from my experience, the heart of the demonic. It affects you internally, and then externally you notice it's freezing. You've been walked through. And that's a very, very dangerous feeling, ability to feel, and a place to be in.
And if it, it's like when you have a cold. If you had a major artery severed and
Yes.
your blood is keeping you warm, what if something is actually affecting your innards? Because it's not. It doesn't seem to be so internal, because they cover themselves up and they're still cold. But it's a form of oppression, definitely. So that's another way that the cold extremity is being used. Used, or it can be manipulated. But we're saying it's the entity itself that is cold, a negative entity.
Exactly.
There is not the warmth of God. There's not the light of God. Now some of the higher ones can project light. The lower ones cannot. That's an ability that only higher rank of demonics can do.
Precisely.
Which brings us to heat. That it's not as common, but it seems to more relate to demonic hauntings that have a higher demon, or even a double, which is a higher rank, like an archangel, in the environment, and creating an unusual amount of heat, even spontaneous combustion. But a demon that starts fires is a different thing. Not all of them can do that either at will, not just because of God's limitations and the environment varies and all that. Any thing to add to them stepping it up a notch besides giving someone a fever?
No.
Not really at all. There was one little story, and it's not that common. It's called the Red Man, where some children reported, to doctors, and they gathered this data and they put it in a book about near-death experiences. Because when the children had fevers, they actually saw a Red Man. Like a classic double. No, it looks like he was a fiery form. And the description is matched. Now, it seems like when heat is done, it's usually not in the house like it's unusually hot in here. I really haven't run into a case like that personally. It gives them an intense fever when they don't have symptoms of a virus. It seems like it's more affected on the individual.
Precisely. And not only that, from my experience, since I don't have much to add, the hot spot would be like swimming in a pool where the top of the water is warm and the below it is ice cold.
Yeah, it can be
And
that
you're just sticking your hand in and out. And that is that's definitely a sensation that you're never going to forget.
I guess there's some way to lock this all together too, because no one ever put on a sacramental who's oppressed and said, it's freezing cold. They say it's burning, or they got intimidated to take it off because they had a burning sensation
Or it was
and it left a burn
itching
ring.
horribly, remember?
Something like that. But that seems to be the characteristics when you meet light with darkness. You meet this holy symbol, this sacramental and then you bring it to someone who's oppressed, and they actually feel burning sensations, not like the old Exorcist movie with the holy water actually kind of creating, it burns,
Yes.
that kind of thing. But that's another time heat will show up supernaturally. It's like it might create the heat on the thing being put on your neck to get it off. So because that thing is not burning the person as much as it wants to get it off as soon as possible
Precisely.
before it's completely run out.
And that's the whole point of sacramentals and prayers and rites, minor rites, is to make the demon so uncomfortable it wants to run.
And that varies too. Another topic in itself, as I always say.
Yes.
Well, that concludes this episode of Fellowship of the Swords, and
Never forget, the battle's already won. Satan's already been crushed. Ken and I, we're here to help you fight the good fight. Well, we still can. So if you ever have a personal problem or know someone, we do have a haunted helpline, and that number is 573-990-1333.
www.swordsofstmichael.org. That's where you can find my wife's great jewelry. A lot of family heirloom quality, and varies in prices. Not the
Medals, rosaries, tenors.
If you want cheap rosaries or something, we can get you one of those.
Yes.
This is more for people who want to step it up a notch, and for gifts and so forth. But we have the sacramentals and so forth.
We do have a lot of free brochures and free materials and prayers if you need them, and those can all be found at our website. We can also mail them to you.
CatholicDemonologist.com with our resources for educational materials and books and videos and so forth. Thank you for tuning in, watching this day or night, and God bless you.